Welcome to the Train of Thought podcast. My name is Logan DeCamp, and I am a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach.
And I'm Chloe DeCamp, and I'm a certified athletic trainer.
And we are sitting down here today because we want to help you learn and grow so you can continue to do without restriction as you age.
Be sure to listen till the end of the episode so that you can get information that you can apply to your life and follow us for more.
That was a big yawn.
Yeah.
Tired?
A little bit.
I feel you. I'm a little tired too.
Cool dude.
Is that how we're starting this?
You were more tired before we started, and as soon as we started, I got more tired.
It's like the other way around.
Yep.
I did take a
5-minute
nap though.
Yeah. Well, I had to get ready.
I
was making sure everything looked all nice. There's some new additions to our plant situation. One here that you can't see because
the lighting is fantastic for those that are watching on YouTube.
You can't do it in the middle of the day. The lighting's just too bright in here.
Yeah.
And then there's one on Logan's side, and they're great and beautiful, and yeah.
Yeah. We got all the plants in here. We're turning into a greenhouse.
Yeah. Which is a great segue, actually, because some plants can really help purify the air that we breathe, including like the aloe.
Nice.
We have big aloe and the pothos, the one that's over next to you. They actually help purify the air.
That's good.
Yeah.
Especially living in Utah.
Yeah.
The air quality can sometimes be pretty gross here.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. So what we're going to be talking about more specifically today is the importance of breathing.
Yeah.
And how it is actually more than just breathing. Duh. But it's essentially, to be more specific, we're going to be talking about your autonomic nervous system and the difference between your parasympathetic and your sympathetic state. And we're also going to just explain how it also can help with stress, anxiety, energy, productivity.
I think right now we're getting into the season of lots of stress and anxiety for a lot of people too. So this is like, I think a good reminder for me, like while I was writing all the notes, I was like testing the breathing and stuff. And I was like, oh, I feel kind of more calm right now. So something that you can use if the holidays are really stressful for you too, because we know how that can be.
Yeah, I think it's also really good for getting more of a clarity on things. Because a lot of times whenever we're frustrated, stressed, upset about something, we often make a decision to send a text or make a call or do some sort of action that we look back on in the future and regret because we didn't allow ourselves to slow down.
Sure.
And like breathe and like get us from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state. Because whenever you're in a sympathetic state, that fight or flight, mentally you're not thinking as clear as you could be if you're in a more parasympathetic state. Yeah. There's a lot of decisions that I find when I go from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state and really get in that rest and digest, which is why meditation is so important, because it really takes you from being stressed and very busy on the go and very distracted to a more parasympathetic state as well too.
Yeah. And that's why meditation thus kind of envelops into the breathing, because oftentimes when we meditate, we're focusing on breath. So they kind of go hand in hand a lot of times if you're doing that technique. So sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. And for those that are wondering what is the difference between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system, we will explain that in just a minute. But essentially, to kind of kick things off here, we do have some notes that we're looking down at and in front of us. But the general idea is when you're stressed, you breathe more through your chest, through your pec minor. And as a result, this increases your heart rate. And it also puts you in a sympathetic nervous state. A sympathetic nervous response in regards to you're now in a fight or flight, you're more in a stress state. So for example, if you're working out, you might find yourself breathing through your pec minor,
It's not just your pec minor though.
Yeah, I guess we should get more
Your
clarity.
chest is a lot broader than just your pec minor. You can hold a lot of tension in the pec minor, and you have your larger pectoralis muscles, but then actually in between each rib, you have intercostal muscles that also are working when we're breathing through our chest. So think of the chest as like just the main lung area rib part.
Yeah.
And we're breathing through there. Oftentimes we hold a lot of tension in the pec minor. That's why you're bringing that up.
And thanks for getting more of a clarity on that. But where I was trying to go with that is that can help us increase our adrenaline. It can make us mentally be more focused. I mean, if you're lifting a lot of weight, you got to be alert, because if you're not alert, you're
alert is different than mentally focused.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference. Yeah, I guess you get more clear on that. But essentially, it just helps you focus in a little bit more. But if you're not breathing through your diaphragm throughout working out as well too, it's going to allow you to not recover in between sets. Your heart rate is going to continue to stay high. You're going to feel very out of breath, and it's just really going to decrease your performance. So we want to, big picture in mind is short breathing, not allowing your stomach to rise and fall, and just breathing through your chest is getting you stuck in a more sympathetic nervous system response, versus if you intentionally breathe through your stomach and allow your stomach to rise and fall, that's going to allow you to get into a more parasympathetic state. Now, of course, depending on the activity you're doing, if you're working out, regardless if you're breathing through your stomach or not, if you're working out for 60 minutes, you're going to be in that fight or flight state. But it's just going to allow you to decrease your heart rate a little bit more in between sets, which is going to boost your recovery and allow you to push a little bit more during that workout as well too.
Totally. I think that was a good way of saying it. There's a time and place for both types of breathing, and incorporating it into like workouts and stuff are really important. So this doesn't just mean like, oh, when you're stressed out or having like anxiety or something like that. This goes further than that. Like breathing is so important. Is it my turn to talk? I don't know.
No, you're good. I mean, yeah, and I do want to get clarity on, we're not just talking about working out, but there's also, it's important for your mental health, like we talked about in the beginning. If you're feeling very overwhelmed and stressed out, sometimes going to another room and just allowing yourself to take 5 minutes to breathe. I once had a client, and I'm going off on a different route here for a second, but she was a busy mom and she never had the desire to eat lunch. And we got to talking and we realized that lunchtime she was normally going from task to task. She was doing things with the baby, and she was stuck in fight or flight in that sympathetic nervous state, or that sympathetic nervous system response. And if you're in fight or flight, it's going to decrease your hunger, and it's not going to that's the computer.
Oh my gosh, I was like, what is that fan sound? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know what's going on there.
Sorry.
Sounds like my computer's going to take flight.
Like, what is that? Did I leave the water on or something? Sorry.
It normally doesn't do that.
You saw my gears turn in there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I did. Anyways, so because she was stuck in a sympathetic nervous system state, and she was stuck in that fight or flight state at lunch, she didn't have the desire to eat. And this was a problem because she was not getting enough protein and macro and micronutrients in her diet. So all I did was I recommended just take 5 minutes to breathe at the time of lunch and see if that increases your hunger and desire to eat. And lo and behold, she was wanting to eat. Like, she actually wanted to eat lunch because she went from a fight or flight stressed to a rest and digest, which is your parasympathetic, which just allowed her to be able to eat again. So
that's awesome.
I thought it would help if, we get more clarity on how long does it take for you to go from a a stress, which is your sympathetic, to a parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest, whenever it comes to breathing. And what are the types of breathing, and just how can we get more clarity on what this looks like? Because for the people that are listening in, it can be very, very valuable. Just like you said, this time of year, whenever there's family events going on and stuff like that, can be stressed and overwhelmed. And if you can just take 5 minutes to go in the other room and, really detach and do some breathing, it could not potentially, it will allow you to mentally and physically feel better.
Yeah. So, I mean, we touched on something there that we want to talk about, just about like how long does it take to kind of switch over from your sympathetic over to that parasympathetic, right? And I did a little bit of research because I wasn't super sure, but a lot of research says that breathing at a rate of 8 breaths per minute can shift over to your parasympathetic nervous system. Didn't specify how quick that is, but in terms of like even just 1 minute of like 8 breaths can probably switch it really quick. But doing like 5 minutes is probably great. And so it says 8 breaths per minute because typically the normal respiratory, when we're not thinking about breathing, we're just going about our daily lives at rest, the normal rate is usually between 12 to 16 breaths per minute. And so when we can reduce that almost by basically half by doing about 8 breaths per minute, that's a huge reduction in, the breath, right, in the minute. And so that can just really stimulate that parasympathetic response. And I wanted to touch on like the anatomy of why does that happen. And this was kind of interesting to me because I like obviously knowing the anatomy and like the physiological, like why does this work? So like we've talked about, the parasympathetic nervous system is that rest and digest. And our main nerve of the nervous system is our vagus nerve. It's the 10th nerve of the cranial nerves. There's 12 of them. And it controls basically, or is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it controls a lot of our involuntary functions like digestion, heart rate and blood pressure, immune system response, mucus and saliva production, skin and muscle sensation, speech, so like the use of our voice box and things, taste and urine output. Those are all things that are kind of related to this nerve. And so it does a lot, and it goes all the way from our brainstem down to like our intestine, or large intestine. And so it controls a lot of things, but it also plays a huge role in how we're breathing and getting our heart rate kind of in check, right? And so I kind of wanted to just take a little bit of a tangent there. So there was when I was reading, it was really interesting. It said that the increase in lung volume by breathing in, so we're expanding our lungs when we breathe in, activates that pulmonary vagal afferent nerve. So like the nerve that's in the lungs then goes up to the spinal cord into our central nervous system. By expanding, it stimulates that pressure sensor almost and tells the brain, okay, we're taking a deep breath. And by doing that, it kind of reflexively stops the sympathetic nerve from going. So the sympathetic one would be to go more rapid breathing. Whereas this one says, okay, we're taking a deeper breath. We're going to shut that off because we're going to start doing some like slower breaths. So that's like that weird, crazy, we can't control that part of it. But by taking a deeper breath more consciously, our body just switches over, which is insane.
Which is funny you brought that up because I mentioned it in the notes when we're going to get to it in a few on heart rate variability. Whenever you breathe out, that activates the vagus nerve, which then turns on your parasympathetic state. But whenever you breathe in, that turns off that signal from the vagus nerve and it triggers your sympathetic nervous system.
The way that I read it was that it's the increase in lung volume specifically. So if we have a greater lung volume when we breathe in, we're going to be stimulating that nerve to shut off the other side of it, of where you'd be a shallow breath on more of a sympathetic state.
Interesting.
I'm
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to also touch on the fact that we were talking about like when we're in that sympathetic with short, rapid breaths, we're using those intercostal muscles and all these other, pec muscles and things like that. And the diaphragm, which is a whole other muscle that a lot of people are like, what the hell even is that? It's a muscle that's on the bottom side of our lungs. It kind of sits between both of our like intestines and stomach and like liver, all that good stuff. And then our lungs is kind of sits in between that space. And when it contracts, it pushes down. So when we're taking like a breath in, it actually moves down. And that's why when we're belly breathing through our stomach, it can expand because it's kind of pushing our guts out of the way. And so when we're really using that diaphragm and doing a good like deep breath, it pushes down. And then when it's ready to contract on our exhale, it pushes up or, relaxes up to help the lungs push all of that air out.
Yeah.
So that's how the diaphragm works, and it's really cool.
Interesting.
And so one known cause of relaxation from prolonged, longer exhales as well stimulates the diaphragm to start working. So it goes both ways. I understand what you're saying in terms of an exhale can also help with shutting it off because we're using the diaphragm, which is also turned on by that vagus nerve. So it kind of is both for the inhale and exhale. So an inhale that's longer, taking up more room in that lung can also stimulate that nerve, and then longer exhales can also stimulate it.
It sounds like regardless, just being more intentional with how fast you're breathing per minute, because you mentioned in the beginning, just being able to do 8 breaths per minute can shift you over to a parasympathetic state. So if you're listening right now and you're driving on the freeway and there's rush hour traffic and people are cutting you off and you are in Utah especially, maybe focus on your breathing. I'm not going to say that you might not still cuss and yell at the person in front of you, but you might just feel a little bit better and have more clarity as well too. So definitely tons of value in just being able to slow down your breathing and being able to switch over. All right. So now that we have more clarity on that, what are the different types of breathing that we could be doing?
Yeah, so we're going to test them out. I'm going to make you test them and see how you feel. We're probably not going to, I'm going to try and kind of get through these kind of decently quick, but there's tons of resources out there to kind of figure out how to do these if it doesn't make sense me explaining it. But a lot of these types of breathing actually have come from like Southeast Asia, and have more recently been more explored in like Western culture. But these health effects from these types of breathing techniques have been known for years. So this is nothing new. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Like it's been around and there's tons of options here. And so one of the most common ones is going to be box breathing. So you're going to breathe in for a count of usually I would say about 4 to 5 seconds. Then you hold that breath for about 4 to 5, and then you breathe out for that same exact amount. So 4 to 5 seconds. And so think of it as like you're literally drawing a box when you're doing it, or seeing like a circle. Like I know that there's lots of visual things that can help with that. So you can always look up videos on like probably YouTube or anything that show you how long to breathe in if you don't want to actually count and you just want to focus on the actual breath. So there's ways to do that. The next one is diaphragmatic breathing, which is what we were talking about with that diaphragm. This is just a really good cue type breathing. So you're going to hold one hand on the chest, another one on your stomach. And for both of those, for most of these, you're going to be breathing in through your nose and out through the nose. So just know that. So this one's hand on the chest, other one's on your stomach, and you'll go in through the nose. You can also do that count, and then allow your belt. Make sure your belly is expanding when you're doing that. You should feel it move. If you feel like your chest is the only one that's moving, you need to kind of balance that and see how you feel with that belly expanding. And then slowly exhale back through the nose and feel that belly lower. So a little more intention there. There's a 4-7-8 type where you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and go out for 8.
That's a long breathe out.
Feels long, huh? But once again, like we were saying, that long exhale can really help stimulate. So if for whatever reason you feel like, I cannot feel like I can get a deep breath within the 6 seconds or something, like I sometimes can feel that, or if like that's way too long of an inhale, try this one where you're still getting those good effects from it, but you can take a longer exhale. Most people can exhale longer than they can inhale. So
interesting.
That's a good one. Resonant breathing. This one is breathing at a rate of about 5 breaths per minute. And it says to inhale for about 5 seconds, exhale for about 5. And you can take a timer and metronome to help. I was reading this, I'm like, 5 breaths per minute. If I inhale for 5, exhale for 5, that's only 50 seconds. I don't understand.
So that's got to be 6 breaths.
So I would try maybe more like the 6 breaths and see how that feels. And if that's too much, try a different method. But this one is a little more structure. You'd want to have like a timer in front of you and really paying attention to how much, because it's like specific to that 1 minute is what it's saying. These are kind of like the fun ones.
Some of these are out there, guys.
These are really fun. I've tried this one and I really like it. It's the alternate nostril breathing.
This is what you were doing all morning, huh? Trying different breathing techniques.
Yeah, literally. So the alternate nostril breathing, I've done this one before. We've talked about this. So you're going to do it with me.
I don't think I'm coordinated enough for
this.
You
can do this.
Okay.
So one thumb is going to be on your right nostril. Okay. I'm going to sound a little funny. You'll inhale through your left nostril. If you're all stuffy from flu season or cold season, this might not be the best one for you. But you can try it another time when you have the blessing of both nostrils. So inhale through that left, and then you'll release, but then switch to the other nostril. So you're going to plug up that left one. And you're right. And exhale through the other one. Does that make sense?
So I hold the right.
Let me say it first, and then you can try it.
Okay.
See, one thumb on your right nostril. Inhale through your left. And then with your pointer or ring finger on the left nostril, and open up from the thumb, and breathe out of the right nostril. Now you can breathe in through the right, plug it up with your thumb, and exhale through the other side.
All right.
It's kind of fun, but it's literally making your brain shut off and only focus on that, because you have to think about the coordination with it, taking that deep breath and flipping back and forth. And it's also limiting how much air can get in at one time. So it's actually making you think, oh, I need to get more through this breath. So you're actually going to breathe deeper. I like that one a lot.
The humming bee breath.
Bee breath.
I got to just record us doing this. This is funny. You can do this,
yeah.
All right, here we go.
So
what are we doing?
You'll put your index fingers like you're going to plug your ears.
Okay.
Well, don't plug them quite yet. You still have to hear me.
Oh. La, 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 la.
You're going to breathe in through your nose. And when on your exhale, you'll press down on the insides of the ears and hum on your way out.
What is the point of this one?
It's the same thing where it's like you're literally treating your brain to just shut off, do something funny and silly for a second. And that humming kind of takes that stimulus in the body to just kind of like get it to calm down. I don't know the full science behind it, but these are all the ones that I've found, and I think they're really interesting. So that one's fun. I would say if you're out in public and you feel silly, maybe don't do that one, but try it sometime because it kind of feels nice to just hum, right?
I think it's just changing something they talk a lot about, and sorry to interrupt,
No, you're
is so in mentorship, and not mentorship, but on podcast, I've heard vibrational energy frequency.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And being able to change your vibrational energy frequency into a more positive state, and this just sounds like a way to do that. Like
exactly, that's
if you're
exactly
really if you're really depressed or sad or upset, you start doing this. I mean, you're going to start laughing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's silly. Yeah, it kind of takes you outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I want to keep getting through these because we have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, we do.
This one is the Ujjayi breath. It's used very commonly in yoga practice. So if there's any yoga instructors, they probably know way more than me. I've taken classes, but I don't know everything. And so this one, you breathe in and out through the nose. You're going to think about constricting like the muscles of the throat almost. Not literally with your hand. Sorry, that's funny.
You told me to constrict my...
No. The cue that they often use is like thinking about like a waterfall down your throat, essentially.
This one sounds way too hard for me.
It's not. It's really not, I promise.
Okay.
It should sound like the ocean, or almost like you're doing like a Darth Vader. Like, that's the sound that it should be making. So you're going to like...
You can't do it without laughing.
I can't do it without laughing. I'm sorry. I don't know. Somebody look it up. But essentially, it's the same idea as using like a breath. And it creates, in yoga, they use it to create kind of heat in the body, is what they say. And it's used really commonly before like a practice, to practice that breathing. I'm probably not going to be able to do it right now because I'm feeling giggly. But essentially, I'll read through it. You're going to kind of think about like those muscles of the throat are kind of smaller while you're breathing, okay? And it'll create that sound. So you're going to breathe in, hold for 6, and breathe out. And it should sound like almost like an ocean or a waterfall or something out over like the back of your throat. And you can practice out with your hand in front of you and breathe out like with your mouth open, right? How we make that sound, and that kind of sounds like water, ocean, whatever, right? And then you'll try to recreate it breathing in through the nose, and then slowly try it with the mouth closed.
Interesting.
That one's a little more complicated for me to explain because I messed it up. Okay, moving on.
No, that was good. I mean, that's just a hard one.
I know, and like that cue of the like type of breath, type of help. I can't do it now because now I feel overwhelmed by it. Never mind. Forget it.
Moving on. It's okay.
Then there's a 3-dimensional breath. I like doing this one while I'm laying down. So you can breathe in and breathe out in like those time periods. Breathing in, imagining it filling up the belly. Then breathing out and it kind of going down, right? Then on your next breath, imagining it going up and down your spine, lengthening through it.
Ooh.
And then compressing back down. And then while also thinking about the belly rising and falling, and then include the back body. So we often forget that our ribs go all the way to our backs as well, and they can expand. And so we're thinking about everything through this way, this way, and this way.
Yeah.
And this way, that way, this way, for those who are listening, are forward and back, to the sides, and up and down.
Interesting.
There's a lot of other ones. You can find what works for you. One of them is a pursed lip breath, and you'll breathe in through your nose and then kind of like kiss your lips out, and breathe out with like a small amount of air through your lips. Lion's breath I will not be doing because I'll laugh too much. But this one's also really good one for like kind of that creating warmth and, feeling kind of almost maybe a little bit silly, but it can work really well for people. Breathing in and then literally like opening up your mouth and like like you're at the dentist or something and saying out, which can also create those vibrations, right? And so
Interesting.
there's a lot there. And sorry for not doing the Ujjayi breath justice there, but
there's value.
You can look into it. I think that was really great. If you talk to any yoga instructors that you go to their classes, they'll teach you how to do that.
So how long should people be doing this for?
What
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes is great.
Okay.
I think as much time as you can really give to it is great. And we'll touch on it a little bit later after Logan goes over a few more things with a study that I found about like timing and how long does it take to really see those effects.
No.
But even just 5 minutes can make an effect on switching over to that.
And
parasympathetic.
And you even said 1 minute can too. So just doing this for 1 minute.
Even like one deep breath, like it can all make a difference.
And you talking about, this is kind of off topic, but just real quick.
Yeah.
It's also really important for bracing your core, breathing through your diaphragm.
Yeah.
You like a lot of people have a misconception that if I brace my core, that I just get my core tight and then I can't breathe and then I'm breathing through my chest.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we can't work out because we can't breathe.
Yep.
And so it's more creating that abdominal pressure in the stomach. Big breath in through the stomach, breathing out, creating like the abdominal pressure through the stomach and through the diaphragm to actually like brace, but be able to breathe. Like I'm braced right now. I'm talking funny, but I'm still breathing through my diafragm because I have that abdominal pressure down there. So if you want, we have a video.
You have a video of it.
Yeah. We have a video on how to brace your core. It's like 2 to 3 minutes. I can send you if you want it. Just comment, message us, and there's ways to do that in the description. But anyways, we already kind of touched on in the beginning that breathing is a very easy way to increase your performance with strength training and aerobic conditioning work by being more intentional about your breathing. You're still in that sympathetic state whenever you do activity, depending on the type and frequency, of course. Like if you're doing a yoga class, that might be more parasympathetic if it's not as intense. Right. But if you're working out, running, biking, things like that, you're in that sympathetic state. But it's going to help you. It's going to help decrease your heart rate. It's going to help you recover a little bit better. It's going to be able to help you push a little bit more. But it's also going to help you increase your heart rate variability as well too, which is essentially what we want to do, especially to be able to help you regulate your autonomic nervous system, which is consisted of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous state. Now, what is your HRV? Well, this is a very complicated topic, and we've already been on here for quite a while, so I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here because this is very, very complicated, and I don't want people to feel overwhelmed because I got too deep in the weeds on this one time, and HRV is really highly individualized, but it's basically the slight variation in time between your heartbeats. That's why it's measured in milliseconds. A high HRV means you have more variation between your heartbeats. Now, why is that important? Well, again, heart rate variability is how well our autonomic nervous system will help us respond to certain situations. So for example, if you have less variation between your heartbeats, your body is going to have a tougher time being able to switch back between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous state. I'll say that one more time because this can get kind of confusing. If you have a lower heart rate variability, which means you have less variation in time between your heartbeats, your body is not able to switch back and forth as easily as it should be from your parasympathetic to your sympathetic nervous state,
and vice versa.
Correct.
Sympathetic into parasympathetic.
Yeah, and back and forth because it's a constant dance between the two. But if you have more variation in time between your heartbeats, your body can go back and forth from your PNS and your SNS, which stands for parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous state. So that's why we want a higher heart rate variability, because we want to. There's something that came from my studies at Precision Nutrition that I really like. The more the more parasympathetic nervous system that you can produce on demand, the more high sympathetic you can produce later. Now, what does that mean? If I do a really intense workout and I do something like breathing, and I be able to, I mean, of course, getting all the macro and micronutrients and sleep, all those things are important for your recovery as well too. But the more the faster you can get into a parasympathetic state right after that workout, or maybe right in between sets, that's going to help you get into a sympathetic nervous system state later. Yeah. And much faster. I really, really hope that's clear, but it's essentially being able to go back and forth from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic nervous state, and your sympathetic nervous system can help you in certain situations. Like if you're doing a super heavy deadlift or a back squat, you need to really tap into that sympathetic nervous system state. Yeah. But you also need to go back and forth, and you need to make sure that in between sets, you are able to get your heart rate down, being able to recover and get ready for the next set. So the more parasympathetic the more parasympathetic you can produce on demand, the more high sympathetic you can produce later. Now, what's cool about this is breathing will actually help you increase your heart rate variability. So, Chloe, do you want to take it away on that?
Yeah. So you can see changes in your heart rate variability with a single session of breathing. So like even just like a 5 to 10 to 20 minute session, you can see changes in a single session, but to be able to see like while within that session, if that makes sense, or I guess that day, or whatever. But over time, if you are consistently practicing breathing techniques and you allocate certain amount of time every day towards it, you can see consistent like a change in that heart rate variability over a longer period of time. And so that's why implementing this into like a practice, if you want to do some 5-minute breathing in the morning, 5 minutes at night, perfect. Like you're getting yourself prepped and ready for the day, and then you're getting yourself ready for bed. Those are really easy ways to implement it. Or like you said, Logan, with that client who maybe doesn't take that time in the middle of the day, lunchtime is a great time to do it right before, crazy afternoons, or figure out what works best for you. But even one session can make a difference there. There was a study that I was able to find. It was a randomized controlled study. They used that resonance frequency breathing, where it's the 5 breaths in 1 minute, which we decided was more like 6 breaths in a minute. But they used like a certain variation of how many. So you could definitely, we can tag that, and if you want to look into it. But basically, they said that 20 minutes of resonance frequency breathing every day for 4 weeks can lead to positive changes in HRV. And I assume, not just that specific style of breathing would make those differences as well. So that was kind of cool. And it, talked about how prolonged expiration, like the breathing out, can stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system really well with breathing out. And then obviously rapid breathing in and out quickly, kind of suppresses that parasympathetic, same kind of things that we've been talking about. And that the HRV, kind of looking at the differences between the two, HRV is a really good way of seeing the difference between those turning on and turning off. So HRV is a really cool method of figuring out how can we balance these two major systems that we use on the daily, but how can we basically manipulate them to be able to have a really good health outcome, I guess. So very cool with that. And I just wanted to kind of end off on like what are all of these things that we've talked about? What are all these benefits that we can get from a parasympathetic
just real quick before you go into that, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I just want to get clarity. So it's important to recognize that breathing is not the only thing that's going to affect your heart rate variability. It's also sleep, diet, lifestyle factors.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, I know. I just want people to know that breathing is just a small component that can affect your heart rate variability as well.
Definitely.
Too.
But it is a good tool. Like heart rate variability is a good tool to be able to analyze the balance between the two. Yeah. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's a cool tool, but don't get too thick in the weeds of it. You can speak to that. Yeah. We'll probably do an episode at some point about HRV. Logan's obsessed with it, so can't hear enough about the HRVs these days. Those high-rise vehicles, am I right?
So the benefits. Oh my gosh. The benefits of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah. Overall, like things that we've already talked about. It can provide stress relief. It can improve with your anxiety, help with mood management, improve your heart health, like we just discussed in terms of the heart rate variability, improve digestion, improve sleep, can give better pain management and better focus and clarity. And we didn't really touch too much on how it helps with digestion or pain management, but essentially by breathing in these techniques in these ways, you're stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system, which help with all of these things, including digestion, because parasympathetic is that rest and digest, right? And so improved sleep, improved digestion, things like that. So I think it's really important. I personally need to implement a breathing session at least once a day to help with my anxiety. I think that would do wonders.
Yeah, no, I mean, I find if I don't intentionally take 5 minutes, at least two times a day to breathe, then I'm feeling more tired, more overwhelmed, and lack of focus. So it's definitely like an important practice in my life that I have to at least do it twice a day, where 5 minutes of breathing. It's funny. I find myself within 3 minutes, I'm asleep sometimes if I do this. So it's crazy how much it can really help you relax and get more into a focus and more of a clarity state. So
absolutely. Yep. So there's a lot more to it, and we can always talk more about it, but I think we summed it up pretty good.
Cool. Yeah. Any questions, please feel free. They're in the description. There's ways to contact us. Please feel free to send it in. And if you do any of the breathing techniques we talked about today, especially the Uwaji.
Oh my gosh. Ujjayi.
Yes. If you do that one especially, let us know. Tag us. We would love to see it. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.